Hello, welcome to Politics and Prose. My name is Danny, where we host a range of in-store events along with classes and trips. Before we get started today, I'd like to ask you to please silence your cell phones so as to not disrupt the event. And when we get to the Q&A portion, please line up at the microphone up here in front of the white column to ask your questions. Tonight, please help me in welcoming Bridgett M. Davis to talk about her new book, Love, Rita, an American story of sisterhood, joy, loss, and legacy. Her new release is a brave and beautiful homage that not only celebrates the special, complex bond of sisterhood, but also reveals what it is to live and die as a Black woman in America. This moving memoir, full of joy and heartbreak, family history alongside American history, uses Rita's life as a lens to examine the persistent effects of racism in the lives of Black women and the men they love. This poignant, deeply resonant portrait of an unforgettable woman and her impact on those she left behind is an essential read. Bridgett Davis is the author of the memoir The World According to Fannie Davis, My Mother's Life in the Detroit Numbers, a New York Times Editor's Choice named Best Book of 2019 by Kirkus Reviews, and a featured clue on Jeopardy! She's also a professor emerita at Baruch College in the Department of Journalism and the Writing Professions, where she taught creative, narrative, and film writing. Davis will be in conversation with Glory Edom, a literary tastemaker, entrepreneur, and advocate for diverse voices in literature. In 2015, she founded Well Read Black Girl, an online platform and book club dedicated to celebrating the works of Black women authors and creating a supportive online community for readers. And her most recent book, Gather Me, was released this past October. So please help me in welcoming to Politics and Prose, Bridgett Davis and Glory Edom.
Thank you so much. Can we give another round of applause? Woo! Thank you. This is going to be a fun conversation
Absolutely.
because, I'm your biggest fan.
I'm your fan, so that's going to work out.
This is such a beautiful, beautiful tribute, and I have so many questions, but I thought we could start with a reading.
Yes,
To set the tone and to welcome us into this beautiful story. Love, Rita.
Thank you. I'd love to. Thank you all for being here. I think I'll just read from the prologue, so there's no setup or anything.
Okay.
Is that cool? All right, here we go.
I can hold it. Hold it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Rita and I stroll side by side along Fifth Avenue, surrounded by a throng of strangers, thrilled to be in New York and away from Detroit, enjoying this brief respite from everything we know. In a few months, a different kind of adventure awaits. I'm off to attend college in Atlanta. Rita's off to attend graduate school, also in Atlanta. My college and her university are walking distance from each other. Our side by side futures shimmer before us. Loss is barely behind us. Our beloved father died a month before, and our mother has treated us to this, our first trip together and our first time in New York. As a balm for our sadness, we are our parents' two youngest children. Our three siblings are 25, 29, and 30. They are adults out in the world already, for better or worse. Rita and I are on the threshold of adulthood, yet still daddy's girls. Mama knows that losing our father is hardest on us. And given our mother's intuitive understanding of each of her children, she surely saw this trip as an opportunity for me and Rita to strengthen our own wobbly relationship. The Big Apple has provided us a whirlwind of distracted fun. We've gone to a disco, the Paradise Garage. We've sat on benches in Washington Square Park and people watched. We've eaten strange new food in Chinatown. We've shopped and window shopped at Macy's in the Village on Madison Avenue. It is 1978, and we have seen our first Broadway musical, The Wiz, featuring Stephanie Mills as Dorothy and Andre DeShields as the Wizard. Rita declares as the lights go up, "Girl, I loved everything about that." And she'll return to New York again and again to indulge her love of Broadway musicals. We've taken touristy photos beside the ABC logo on Avenue of the Americas and 54th Street, in the gilded lobby of the Warwick Hotel where we're staying, beside the Ain't Misbehaving poster at Manhattan Theater Club moments before seeing our second all black musical. In the photos, I'm wearing outfits that I have purchased at Winkleman's department store where I work after school. Rita and I swap tops to expand our fashion options. In one picture, I'm wearing the long, loose pink tunic, and in another, she's wearing it. I am experimenting with my hairstyle, a ponytail sticking up on one side. Rita declares that my artsy look fits right in here. Her endorsement will fuel my choice to move to New York a decade later. When I was 13 and Rita was already a sophomore in college, this is what I wrote about our relationship. Dear Diary, you know, Regina and her sister Rosalind are super close. And even though Rosalind's in college, they call each other up anytime just to say hello. Well, maybe it's because they're closer in age than Rita and me. But I know every time Rita calls, she always asks for Mama only. And I don't even call her. I always thought we would become inseparable sisters. I guess not. Well, nothing to get upset about. I was merely thinking. And now here we are, making our way up Fifth Avenue together. We have done a lot of walking today, and Rita's stride slows down around St. Patrick's Cathedral. She says we need to she says we need to call it a day because her leg is bothering her. Really? I snap. Are you just trying to be like Mama? Our mother's legs often ached due to blood clots she suffered regularly. Mama couldn't walk for long periods of time. Sometimes she would say suddenly, "I need to get off my legs," and look for a place to sit. I don't want Rita to remind me more of our mother than my sister right now. I want this to be our bonding moment. Want us to be united in that way I have fantasized about for so long. Rita stops walking. "I can't believe you don't believe me," she says, hurt in her voice. I stop too. Fast paced New Yorkers whizzing by us. "I just know how you can be sometimes," I say. "And you can be so selfish," she snaps. Our bickering often flares up like this, fueled by our beliefs. I think Mama prefers Rita because she's so much like her, which I envy and resent. At first glance, they look alike, share the gift of gab and the zodiac sign of Taurus, have such similar handwriting that in a pinch she could forge our mother's signature. Rita thinks Mama spoils me because I'm the baby, which she envies and resents. She often tries to compensate by telling me what to do. I resist, can't believe how bossy she is. She pushes back, can't believe how hard headed I am. We play out this dance of incredulity on a regular basis. Today, though, it's harder for me to take. I feel my hopes of a newfound closeness between us dashed on the spot, right here in the heart of New York City. For a moment, neither of us speaks, each fuming in disappointment. "You just don't get it," Rita finally says, exasperated, now limping slightly. "Because you don't have to." 2 years before, she was diagnosed with lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease, and the condition sometimes snatches her energy. I don't understand yet what it means that Rita suffers from lupus. Only that when she received the diagnosis, the whole family came together to be with her, including our father, long divorced from our mother. I do know that rest seems to help, but she's right that I don't really get it. I don't have to, and I don't want to. I can only handle one family misfortune, or so I think. Fine, we'll just go back to the hotel, I say, with forced exasperation. I throw my arm out to hail a taxi the way I've seen it done in movies. And eventually, but not right away, it works. We slip into the yellow cab, and as it pulls away from the curb, I am crestfallen. Our time together was going great, and now it isn't. We return to our room at the Warwick Hotel with its twin beds. Rita lies down, tired, in need of a nap. I gently pull her high heel wedgies off her feet, and as she closes her eyes, Rita says to me, "Let's not fight, okay? It always upset Daddy." This is true. And at the mention of him, a double pang of grief and guilt crowds my heart. We have never before called a truce on our bickering, so this is something new. But of course, we're different now. I nod, relieved that she wants what I want, and she drifts off to sleep. Losing Daddy, the unthinkable, is the big tragedy of our lives. If we honor his wishes, get along, the world will right itself a bit and we'll be okay. We'll make it through. I watch Rita closely as she naps atop the hotel room bed. Inexplicably, I place my hand atop her body, follow its outline. My palm rests lightly on the curve of her hip, my hand rising and falling with her breaths, her heartbeat in my fingertips. I feel both protective and silly. She's my big sister. She's steadfast and smart and ubiquitous. She doesn't need my protection. And yet, a feeling comes over me of duty. I reject it, wanting to bask in my status as baby of the family. I lift my fingers off her body, pull back. But it turns out Rita isn't asleep. She opens her dark eyes and looks right into mine. "You have healing hands," she says to me in that hotel room in Midtown Manhattan on that day so long ago. Was she right? If so, why couldn't I save her? Why didn't I? Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes.
Test, test. Test, test.
That was so beautiful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was so beautiful. Um, Instantly, we are taken into a place where we understand the dynamic between you and your sister, and there's so much that you unpack in the book. It's deeply personal. There's themes of love, grief, and memory, but there's something else that's happening there. It feels like there is the duty that you're referring to. This book feels like a tribute to her and a duty to sisterhood. Can you talk about what inspired you to honor your sister in this way?
Thank you for asking me that. I had thought when I wrote my first memoir, The World According to Fannie Davis, that I was good. I was done. Because in that book, I talk about Rita.
Yep.
In fact, you couldn't talk about my mother without talking about Rita because they were like this. And Rita was so instrumental in helping my mom with her business, actually. And so I thought, I'm good. Rita died in 2000. So it's a long time ago. And on what would have been her 65th birthday, I decided to write her a letter. So I'm writing this letter to her, and without even planning it, I end up saying, "I still don't understand why you're not here." And I had so many emotions in the process of writing the letter that I realized I had not processed losing her, despite the fact that it had been over 20 years. And I am a writer, and the way I process is through writing. And so I realized at that moment, oh boy,
Here we go.
looks like this is the next book, because I need to figure out what it is that is still troubling me.
Yeah.
Right.
What was so moving is, again, we're witnessing the relationship you have with your sister, and we're also seeing how you're like evolving and the tension you have as siblings, the admiration you have for one another. And I'm going to read some words back to you because there were so many different passages that I loved.
I love that.
um, there is a part in chapter 11 where you describe this vivid memory you have. I do have one vivid memory of us from that spring, one that I hang on to greedily. My boyfriend Byron and I are in the auditorium on Atlanta's university's campus to watch Rita practice for an upcoming presentation, and my pride swells as I stand in the back, seeing how good my sister looks on stage in her pinstripe skirt and jacket, and the power suit of the 80s. I love seeing how well she presents and performs the presentation with professionalism. I know that I'm seeing her in you. In another memory, one that Byron has helped me conjure, he and I cut through Atlantic University's campus to get to our class at Morris Brown College, part of Atlanta University Center Consortium, and we passed by Rita working at the registrar's office, where we stop and chat. I love being reminded that these times we run into each other on campus. And my favorite part was just like that pinstripe jacket and skirt and shoe. It just is like there's something about like throughout the book you just have these moments where you're just watching her be herself and be authentic, and that inspires you. And you in the beginning you talk about how that led you decades later to decide that you were going to go to New York. So what was it about your sister's audacity and presence that inspired you so? Because it seems like it goes beyond just sisterhood or siblings. Is there something else there?
I think now that I'm actually looking back on it, I don't think I've still to this day met anyone who was so comfortable in her own skin and who genuinely liked herself. That's hard to say, especially young women, women in general. I feel like many of us can't say that. And I witnessed it from the beginning of our relationship as sisters. This was who she was. And it was so inspiring without my understanding that I was gathering all this inspiration. It was like, be you. That was her whole thing. Don't change for other people. Just be who you are.
Well, she was clearly so brilliant. Like she skips grades. She gets diagnosed with lupus at the age of 20, which is also the same age she graduates college. And it's such a pivotal moment in her life, but also in your life too. How did that diagnosis like change your family and your relationship with her?
I think we were all, except for my parents, we were all naive. I don't think we understood. I remember thinking maybe this is just a little bit like arthritis, and nobody dies from arthritis, so she should be okay. I was 16, and I had only known her as my healthy big sister. And so, because lupus is wily, it's sometimes they call it invisible symptoms because she was tired or she had to rest or she couldn't exert a lot of energy. She had headaches. She had things that sadly you don't equate necessarily with a major illness. Right. And so it became easy for me to be like, she's fine.
Right.
Also, she was determined to live her life fully. So that was the other aspect of it. She was never one to say, I mean, I'm amazed I'm saying this, but I actually never heard her complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like this virtue of just when we all know that Black women need to rest more, but there's also the side that is ambitious and steadfast and wants to always achieve. And as a sister looking on, like you didn't see her in pain, but clearly she was. So can we talk about what that means, especially when this concept of like weathering and how it affects Black women's health And how did you learn to acknowledge her pain? Was it something that you finally saw as she got older and you got older, or was it more the reflection of writing this book that you were
No,
supposed to
in
be like,
real time, I came to understand because also I started to be around her more. You know, she got diagnosed at 20. She was off living her life. She was working first in Nashville, then she moved to Chattanooga. So I wasn't spending a lot of time around her. And so once I was able to really witness her on a more regular basis, I could see for sure that she
yeah,
was struggling.
yeah.
You know, as she was younger, it wasn't as severe, but it got tougher as she got older.
Can you talk about just how her story sits in the larger context of the inequalities Black women face in healthcare? Because not only are you talking about your sister, but you have an example about Toni Morrison when she got diagnosed, and there's a beautiful passage about how your mother, there was a luck to her experience, to Rita's experience, because they knew exactly what she was dealing with. Whereas
Yeah.
so many times people are misdiagnosed or they go years without being properly diagnosed. Um, but at least that one hurdle was over, you know?
Yeah, I thought we were lucky. Am I getting feedback? My mom said that. She said luckily she was diagnosed properly
Mm-hmm.
because that's rare. That's rare.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we had a black family doctor and he took her complaints seriously. When she said, "These are my symptoms," he believed her.
Yeah.
And he immediately sent her to a rheumatologist. And this is in the early 70s.
Yeah.
So that was already a wonderful thing. I think that, I share this story in the book because it's so haunting to me. Tony Braxton
Mm-hmm.
was 2 weeks out from getting a heart transplant
Wow.
before they understood that, oh, you have lupus.
Wow.
And so they treated the lupus so she didn't have to have a heart transplant. And she looked back and she realized she had probably had lupus for 20 years
Oh, wow.
without being diagnosed. So that's not unusual. So Rita was fortunate in that way. And she was under the care of the same rheumatologist her whole life. She suffered from the condition for 24 years and she had one doctor that whole time. I will say, though, that even though he definitely treated her,
Mm-hmm.
there's still this implicit bias because I now look back and I think too many times did he say, well, that's just if there was a complaint or a request to try a new kind of approach, some new kind of cocktail of medications, he would always say, but she's doing great compared to others, and that's just what lupus is.
Wow.
And I look back on that now. I'm like, that wasn't assertive enough, you
Yeah.
know. Her friend used to always say, I wish she could have gone to a different doctor, but she was loyal to him.
Mm-hmm.
And there were ways in which he was really helpful. But was there a part of him that thought, you're a black woman, you're fine
Right.
comparatively?
Right.
Yeah.
And there's, that example you gave, it just makes me think of just how you did the research of this. Because with your first memoir, well, your first book about your mother, um, there's so much collective family history and so many
Yeah.
conversations that you have, and
Yeah.
it made me curious of, like, did you talk to Rita's friends and family? Like, how did that transpire? Was there new things that you learned about her that you didn't know before?
Oh,
What was the
my
gathering like?
goodness, yes.
Oh.
I'm smiling because Rita's best friend from graduate school is sitting right here, Annie. And
That's awesome.
and when you go back over and decide to write about someone and go back over their lives and you reconnect with the people that loved them and cared about them, it's really quite an experience. It's like an investigative process in a way, but also so beautiful. I couldn't have written the book without Annie and others because they knew her in a different way. I was her sibling, but this was her friend at grad school, who, by the way, Annie said to me, I witnessed a lot of her symptoms that you might have missed, Bridgette, because you were over at Spelman,
Yeah.
but she witnessed it.
Yeah.
And so that helped me understand what Rita was pushing through even at that early stage.
Yeah.
Because she was like, I'm getting my MBA.
Yeah.
She said, like, I'm getting my MBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I, it's funny when you go back and you learn more. In my case, I admire her even more.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
there was there a part of you that felt like you were talking with her? When I was writing my memoir and my dad has since passed, so much of the writing and doing the research of our story together made it feel more alive, like
Mm-hmm.
he was present with me.
Mm-hmm.
So often we don't talk out loud about when our loved ones pass, we don't like say it out loud. How did it feel just, talking about her in real time, connecting with her friends, with family? Like, what did that feel
I
like?
really love you that you brought that up because
Mhm.
that's a big thing with me. Like after I wrote the book about my mom, my son who never got to meet his grandmother, now talks about her.
Oh
He
wow.
has a beautiful photo of her in his bedroom. He wrote a song called
Oh,
Fanny,
oh, that's
and it's
amazing.
like because I wrote a book, I populated his
Yeah.
her in their lives again. I
Mm-hmm.
made her real in their lives.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying to me is the beauty. People ask me, how could you take on such a tough project?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was in
Yeah.
some ways to go back over, retracing her life and her illness and the end days. That was hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the joy
Mm-hmm.
of basically being in a relationship with her again.
Yeah.
That's what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Suddenly she was alive for me.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I talked to someone and they shared their stories and told me how much she meant to them, we were both experiencing her again
Yeah.
in that process. And that is amazing, let me just say. And once again, now I'm having conversations about her,
Mm-hmm.
which I wasn't. When someone dies,
Mm-hmm.
you often don't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Either other people think you'll be too sad if you bring them up,
Right. Right.
or you don't feel like, what's the point? Like, maybe someone didn't know your dad, so
Yeah.
you're not talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you write a book
Yes.
and you have a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You have a reason to talk about the people you love. So
Yeah.
I'm excited by that.
It was just it's such a beautiful thing to witness and how you write. And I feel like what's the best thing about it is you don't shy away. I don't know. I can't talk this evening.
You have a 5-year-old.
I have a 5-year-old. I'm having brain fog. um, but you don't shy away from the difficult moments you all
Yeah.
had too. Even in the opening prologue, you like allude to it. So, why was that essential to talk about? Just like the sibling, the sisterly back and forth you had, the fact that your mom was writing letters, encouraging you all to be closer, even the jealousy you felt that she was, like you thought she was your mom's favorite. Can you talk about that? Yeah.
I just feel if I am going to take this on, there's no reason to not be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard enough to do. And so it felt to me like if it was going to have value for someone beyond myself and the people who knew Rita, it would come from being honest because that's how people see themselves in the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe too, people can tell when you're not being honest.
Yeah. I agree with that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was helpful.
Can you talk a little bit more about your role? I guess how you see your role as a storyteller to preserve not only your sister's legacy, but also the experiences of Black women navigating similar struggles.
Yeah, I didn't set out for this to be my thing, but
Yeah.
it looks like it is. I have always written about Black women and always wanted to honor their lives
Mm-hmm.
and present them in the complexity with which they actually live and move through the world. I feel like so often Black women's lives are flattened
Yeah.
and simplified, and that drives me crazy. And so I'm both honoring my own loved ones, but trying to really paint these portraits uh, that are truer to who we are as Black women. Like
Yeah.
that feels like a very important mission in my life. Yeah.
Can you spoke to the joys of writing the book, but can you elaborate on what was challenging, especially in the investigation part, like when you were doing the research and putting together the chapters? I really loved the preface when you talked about the numbers and like the number 4 and the reason how you struck it. Can you share that with the audience?
Yeah. I realized as I was working on the book and beginning to put it together that Rita's personal number was 4. There was a lot of fours in her life, you know. She had four letters in her name. She was born in the fourth month of the year. She was the fourth child of our parents, and she was in my life for 40 years. And she died at 44. And that gave me a organizing principle, you know. I thought, all right, I'm going to just use that number four in all the ways that can really help me think about how to tell this story. Yeah, so that was important to me. I will say, if anyone's thinking about taking on this kind of project in your life where you want to write about a loved one, I say go for it. But know this, you may learn things you weren't anticipating or prepared to learn. That definitely happened with me. I was, you know, writing about her college boyfriend, and he's still around. I got to talk to him, but he has some mental health struggles, and he's upfront about it. But in the process of doing the research, I learned some things I had no idea about. Oh, and I'm not going to say more because I want you to feel like you have to read the book. But things I had no idea about in terms of him and in terms of them.
Wow.
So it's wild. They had a relationship, and you know, she was at Fisk University and she graduated in '72. But here I am sitting in my office in Brooklyn, New York, in 2023, grieving
Yeah.
because I'm learning something I had never known. So it was very real for me. So that's kind of wild, you know.
How does that change your perception of your sister's life or the things you knew or didn't know? Was it, yes, grieving, but how did you overcome that and come to a place of resolve?
I did feel like I was getting to know her better. And so that was good. You know, because it gave me more reasons to admire her. I'm admiring a full flesh and blood, flesh and blood person, not just because she's my sister.
Yeah.
Because I feel like writing the book helped me see her more fully.
Yeah.
And I don't know, in some ways that made my love expand,
Yeah.
you know.
Another part of I mean, it's such a perfect word, expand. There is like a expansion that you witnessed with the letters. Can you talk about how did you always have the letters? Did you find them? Did your mother have them, or your your family house? Like, how did you decide which ones to put in and or keep out, or did you just put all of them in?
Well, it's kind of hard to believe this, but when I decided to start writing this book, this is what happened. After my sister died, I packed up her apartment and I put all of these things in a trunk. And then I didn't look at them or open that trunk for 20 years.
Oh wow.
And then I opened it. And I have no memory of taking all the letters she wrote to me and putting them together
Oh wow.
with a ribbon around them.
Oh.
But I have no memory of doing that at all.
She
But-
did it. It was a
But
gift.
there they were.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, she, back to that number four, she wrote to me across our time together. The first letter she wrote to me was when she was a freshman at Fisk. And across her lifetime, she wrote 22 letters to me, which again is like that number four again. And so I include pretty much all of them in the book,
Yeah.
which is where the title comes from, because that's how she'd always sign her letters. Yeah.
Can you talk about this the opening photo and the cover? Because that was the first
Yes.
thing that just grabbed me.
Yeah.
You all look so happy and just like joy pouring from your face. But there's something about like captures the essence of your sisterhood.
Yeah.
And when as I was reading that, I was thinking like I haven't read a lot of sister novels. You know, maybe in like some pieces of fiction, but not necessarily nonfiction. So this is like another like tribute that we have to model after.
Yeah, I thought that way too. I thought, where do we see stories of Black sisterhood, sibling sisterhood? Not that much. And as I began to look out there and literally look for these stories, I couldn't find much. So I thought that's another reason I want to really share, because it's a really unique experience, sisters. It's very little like it. And in my mind, it's the great untold love story.
Yes.
I always wanted a sister. I have